Hello, I'm Hardman Canada and I can speak with my telepathic powers because of my mustache. Today I will talk about the Atari 2600 Plus. In the first part I will do an unboxing and a quick history of the Atari. In the second part I will present you a few games that I tested and why I think Sega and Nintendo should do the same. Millions of years ago, in the prehistoric era, when cavemen and dinosaurs lived together, the Atari 2600 came out and it became the most popular video game of its generation, the second generation of video games. The Atari 2600 was one of the first consoles where we can put interchangeable cartridges. The first generation of the video game console, like the Magnavox Odyssey, can only play integrated games, built-in games. The Atari 2600 is older than the NES and the Master System, the two most popular third-generation consoles. This is me when I was unboxing the Atari 2600 Plus. This product comes with an Atari controller and an Atari cartridge that come with 10 built-in games where you can select the game you want to play by changing the switches on the back. It also comes with an HDMI cable. Yes, you heard me right, an HDMI cable for an Atari 2600 console, and that's insane to think about. And it also comes with a USB-C for power. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a power block, so I have to use my phone's power block. I hate it when company does that. The Atari 2600 Plus is a modern version of the Atari 2600. It was made to play on modern TV, original Atari 2600 games that you kept millions of years ago. I honestly think that this is a good idea. On top of that, the Atari is relicensing old Atari 2600 games to officially re-release them. For example, this game Berserk came out millions of years ago, but in 2023, Atari started a project to manufacture new Atari 2600 cartridge to release game that was relicensed. Atari is planning to release other games in the next few months. The Atari 2600 Plus works almost exactly the same as the original Atari 2600 that came out millions of years ago. It's insane if you take the time to think about it. Nintendo and Sega should do the same thing if they want my money. This is the first game that I tested, Berserker. Berserk is a shooter. You travel in different mazes and you try to survive as long as possible by defending yourself against enemies shooting at you. Millions of years ago, video games used simple graphics and you had to use your imagination. In this game, I don't understand what they are saying. So this must be the language of cavemen. Ugu gaga, ugu gaga. Pole position is the next game. It's a racing game where you need to reach the checkpoint before the time limit. It's amazing to see that this game still works after millions of years. By the way, millions of years ago, a caveman discovered fire, so we should be all grateful for his discovery. The next game is Mrs. Pac-Man. The Atari 2600 Plus can also play Atari 7800 games, but the Atari 5200 game is not compatible, and I don't understand their decision. For those of you who doesn't know, the Atari 7800, I will make a comparison to make you understand. The Atari 2600 is the equivalent of the PS4, but the Atari 7800 is the equivalent of the PS4 Pro. This game is Mrs. Pac-Man for the Atari 7800. It plays the same way as Pac-Man for the arcade, but this time you control Pac-Man's girlfriend, Mrs. Pac-Man. By the way, Pac-Man is one of the most influential video game characters of all time, because millions of years ago, during the second generation of video game, Pac-Man was the most popular video game character. The next game is Dig Dug. Dig Dug. In this game, you control a character that goes underground to defeat monsters. Each time we almost defeat all the monsters, the last monster runs away like a coward because he rage quit. Even rage quitter existed millions of years ago. I often meet rage quitter when I play fighting games online, so these must be their ancestors. I have a question for all of you. What is the first Mario game? If you answered me Mario Brothers for the NES, you are wrong. I will show you the first Mario game. This is Mario Brothers for the Atari 7800, the first Mario game. There is also a version for the Atari 2600. Millions of years ago, Nintendo game was on Atari, and that's not all. This is technically not the first Mario appearance. Mario also appeared in a game called Donkey Kong for the arcade, but his name was Jumpman back then. There is a never-ending debate between Mario fans, because no one can agree if Jumpman was Mario himself or Mario's father or Mario's grandfather. The best argument to support this theory is that Cranky Kong was the original Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong Arcade when he was young, so it brings weight to the argument that Jumpman, who fought the original Donkey Kong, was Mario's father or grandfather, called Jumpman. This must be the reason why Mario and Donkey Kong are always rivals in both movies and video games. It must be in their DNA to fight each other. This is Pitfall for the Atari 2600. This is a platformer. It is considered as one of the best games for the system. In this game, you control an explorer called Pitfall Harry. You explore the jungle to find treasures while you avoid enemies. The gameplay is simple, but it's very fun. The graphic is incredible for an Atari 2600 game. By the way, the original Atari 2600, we can plug a Sega Genesis controller to play games, but it doesn't work very well with the Atari 2600 Plus. I made a test and it did not work for me. Millions of years ago, a caveman invented a circle wheels. Without him, our car would be using square wheels instead of a circle wheels. We should all be grateful for that caveman who passed down his knowledge across millions of years. To conclude, I really like the Atari 2600 Plus because the original Atari 2600 is now millions of years old and some of them doesn't work anymore because of its old age. The Atari 2600 Plus is one way to replace your broken Atari console. I know that the Atari Flashback console exists. The Atari Flashback console have a lot of built-in Atari games, but I prefer the Atari 2600 Plus because it have more charm to it. You can play your original Atari game from millions of years ago. The downside of this is that not all Atari games are compatible. The Atari website have the game compatibility list for the Atari 2600 Plus. The other downside is that at the moment I'm making this video, Atari only ship this product in North America. So if you live in Europe, Africa, Asia, Antarctica, Oceania, in a different planet or in another dimension, you will need to find a workaround like using eBay or Amazon. I really think that Sega and Nintendo should do the same thing. They released their version of the Atari Flashback like the SNES and Genesis Mini. But if they make an official virtual console with modern capabilities like the Super Nintendo Plus or the Sega Genesis Plus that can play original SNES and Genesis game and made it available worldwide, they will make a lot of money. The NES, the Super NES, the Nintendo 64, the Master System, the Sega SG-1000 and the Sega Genesis. Nintendo and Sega have a lot of history, so they have a lot of options when it comes to retro games. I know consoles like the Retron exist, but it is a third-party product. Plus, it will not interfere with the market of modern gaming because the market for retro gaming and the market for modern gaming are two separate markets, so they will never interfere with each other. Let me know your opinion, and if you are watching me for the first time, please do not subscribe to my channel. I said do not subscribe to my channel. Do not. Bye everyone, I love you all because of my mustache. See you next time.